from the necessary and commensurate action associated with that advice. I would always link the two.
Thank you.
So there's a gentleman that's been very patient. I'll come to you next. I think I've got time for, I'm relying on Greg to keep me on track here. So
what you're undertaking is huge and a very valuable effort. But I wonder how fundamental you guys are going. Let me take an example from your industry, insurance. A consumer reading an insurance policy won't get anything out of it. It's not meaningful. It's not clear language. It's full of jargon. Prospectuses could be the same way. I mean, we can look at all of the primary documents which are delivered to clients in order to ensure disclosure of key aspects of a contract. How far will the committee be looking at basic documents which are supposed to be disclosure documents?
Yeah, an excellent question. I think the need for clarity and plain language in our industry is absolutely paramount, and it's with some humility. I know there are a number of Sun Life folks in the room, but it's with some humility I look at some of our own documents and the need to improve these. And I see that as being a very important part for all of us on the way forward, is getting to simple, clear, understandable versions of what we do and how a customer can understand, follow, and act on that. So it's a point very well made. I think I owe the left-hand side of the room a question, and I can't see the mic, so this is why I'm wandering around the stage to...
Is the mic on? Yes, it is.
Mic's
on. Mr. Stewart, as you no doubt are aware, financial literacy, the concept of financial literacy depends on the conveyors of the knowledge and the information being financially literate themselves. Yes. Currently, in our industry, we have people on the periphery who are unlicensed. I won't go into too much detail, but unlicensed, unqualified, don't aspire to any code of ethics, no continuing CE credit requirements of any kind. The question is this: does your mandate include making recommendations to Minister Flaherty regarding this huge difference in knowledge and requirements?
Our mandate as written is quite prescribed, but the question as to Canadians being misled by inappropriate advice from inappropriate sources does pervade our industry, because financial fraud and financial scams do us all great harm. They do the individuals affected extreme harm, but they do the rest of us by association enormous harm. And we will certainly be touching on that aspect of wrong advice, ill-sourced advice, inappropriate advice coming from people who, unlike all of you in the room, are not focused on continuing professional development, the constant need that exists in today's society. If you don't keep up, you're going to be out of date in very short order.
What about people who are unlicensed?
People who are unlicensed are obviously part of that, and in our dialogues, that is certainly going to come up. Whether it will show up in our final recommendations, again, it's a little early to say, but this has been a valuable interchange here. And as I mentioned earlier, Susan's keeping pretty close track of your various comments and questions from all points. There's a person at the mic, and then I may come back to the floor. I suspect I may have to conclude here, so perhaps take one more question, and we want to keep you in order. This will be the last question.
This is a combination question and a comment as well, and I very much agree with the last questioner. Those individuals that dealt with Bernie Madoff were not financially illiterate. They were, to a large extent, very financially literate. I'd have a hard time saying that Steven Spielberg can't balance his bank book, couldn't differentiate between an asset and a liability. But in spite of that, Bernie Madoff was successful in taking advantage of these individuals to the tune of $50 billion. That's a lot of money. Those individuals that bought into Portis, to a great extent, were not financially illiterate. They knew what they were getting into and got scammed anyway. So the flaw isn't with financial literacy. I would take issue with this being a vital life skill. Breathing is a vital life skill. Financial literacy is a life skill that's optional. If it was a vital life skill, there would be lineups at community colleges teaching us how to do this. There would be a demand. There would be protests on the streets. I don't see any of that. I don't want to say that your task force is doomed to failure, but I have an ominous feeling about it, that it's like teaching people about obesity. You know, fat people still go to McDonald's.
I object to that.
I rest my case. So we can teach people all we want, but it isn't going to make any difference. The advice providers here seem to be the problem. The literacy amongst advisory services is the problem. And the failure here is in enforcing the regulations that we already have. We don't need any more regulation. We already have lots. You know, Moses had 10 commandments, not 10,000 bloody rules. So we don't need more regulation. We need to enforce what we have. So I would look at this task force and say, it's all very well to spend my tax dollars trying to get Canadians to understand how to balance their bloody bank books, but good luck with that. Thank you.
Well, you'll forgive me if I don't particularly want to close on that note. In mathematics, if I might retreat to my own profession, we have to distinguish between necessary and sufficient conditions. And we see financial literacy as a necessary condition for functioning in today's society. But it is not a sufficient condition. There are many other things that have to come into play. And I would say to you that the one enduring experience I have had thus far as chairing the task force is that everyone comes at us with their particular background and issue, and they're looking for financial literacy to solve the entire problems of society. As chair, I can promise you that we will not be able to do that, but equally as chair, I promise you we were looking for a great deal of bringing material together to produce actionable recommendations that will make a difference. That's our goal. Thank you this morning.